Hello, family. Glory be to God and blessed be the Lamb. Glory be to God and blessed be the Lamb. You know, thousands of years ago, we developed within the house of Israel what would have been thought of then as transgressors against God's law as it pertained to the people outside of the house of Israel. That's when it was one whole house, and then there was a big fight. It became two houses, and then you had the house of Judah under one king and the house of Israel under another king. Anyway, that's kind of not pertinent to what I'm saying. Now, you know, as it was then, it is now. What had the house of Israel as a whole at first? What law, what biblical rule had they transgressed? They had transgressed the law of intermingling, maybe, okay, in that day's terms, okay, for what would become obvious reasons. Those reasons being that they started bringing foreign ideologies, not foreign as in foreign, but not of the house of Israel or the house of Jacob, or regulated by the Old Testament of the Bible. This was the transgression. You can transgress that in many ways, and they did. It would usher in later a war between the house of Israel and the house of Judah. What would become the house of Judah? Anyway, today, I was sitting here thinking, and this is the coon class today. Some of my friends and cohorts would refer to them as bootlegs, race baiters and race traders. I myself, I rarely speak of them. They are of the 2/3. We really don't care. They've always been there, even when they got thrown into slavery over it. Some people just don't get it, do they? Don't get it. One of the things that God said to Israel, us, and you had pissed him off something fierce. He said that I put you in slavery to make you worthy of the air I breathe into you, which lets you know that the house of Israel spring from Adam, as in Adam and Eve. The Bible gives telltale signs, hints. If you are bumping into them here and there and here of this connection. That is the bloodline, the one of Adam. However, be that as it may, today we would think of them as the coon class. Let me see if I can clean this up. I don't necessarily, again, these are euphemisms. It doesn't really matter what you actually call them, because they think of themselves how they want to think of themselves. It's kind of redundant. They've been called everything. Did it stop them from birthing children and raising those other children to believe and to act in the face of what is clearly an adversary, at the very least, the way that they do? The short answer is no. It doesn't matter what actually happens. Anyway, it's as if they have some kind of vested interest. And I guess I can see it. It's kind of weird, but anyway, I'm trying not to let this conversation sink into something that's either comical or, well, that's going to happen, but offending. Some things are just is, like the sun rising. For right now, that just is, okay? And the sun falling, it just is. So I've heard everything now. You have attorney after black attorney after black attorney. Why making videos explaining the case and themselves and why and the wins and how this happened, and but that's not really what's going on. They're really explaining themselves and where they stand. Thank you. This is this is the most open you've been in your miserable existence. We just have to know how to read between the lines. He's saying that basically he is an American first, and there's nothing you can do about that, and that their preference is they are American. You, on the other hand, are not, never was, and never was so much even a citizen. But here they are, given citizenship by men. Anyway, I don't want this to sink. And I mean overwhelmingly going back hundreds of years, starting with the giver of the citizenship themselves. We have to be clear about all this stuff. Like I said, for me, it's just data. But once you start to attach all of the emotion to it, it becomes something else. It takes on a different energy. Think of it as a study, maybe, rather than someone coming at you sideways, determined to hit you. Not really. You're already hit. It doesn't matter if you scream out loud or if right before the car hit you, it slammed on the brakes and made this screeching sound. The fact of the matter is that you're already hit. You shouldn't concern yourself, too much about what happens after that, except hospitalization, legalities, and change of ID or licenses and insurance. And that's the end of it. Anyway, but now they explain themselves as if it's important. It's not important. It's not important. I'm trying to see in the value in what they're doing. Their own storylines and their own explanations and their own narratives. Actually the frontal attack is not about any of those things. First, you have to be clear. The frontal attack is not about any of the things you are talking about. Okay? Again, we are thousands of years old. We get nuance. We get it. Now, whether we accept it or not, that's a different condition, a different story. Okay? My point is, it is just not necessary, and the entire frontal assault is simple. As an argument that because you share, or we don't share, or we don't have a shared experience, we perceive the world differently. Okay? Differently. Because of this lack of a shared experience, the outcomes within society as per scenario will be different for you as opposed to us. This is the reality. And hold on, calm your heels. And the argument is that you are able to do this because white society, i.e. white supremacy, has a preference and a favor towards blacks who don't have the same shared experience as us. Okay? To wit, white supremacy has been trying to cleave Judah from the rest of the house for the better part of 100 years. It's just done secretly. They know who Judah is. They know how they look, know how they talk, know how they walk, and they see the differences. Okay? So, with the understanding that white supremacy has always done this, and understanding why, it's because Judah is more combative, more intellectual, more inventive, more what's the word I'm looking for? They're a danger, um, influential. Their influences on the rest of the plantation, going all the way back then, was noticed. It's something about this tribe that's impacting the other tribe on a sociological level as far as influence. Okay? This is the reality. God damn, would you get it? And now, to some young man, I would presume, excuse me, that he actually believes the words out his mouth when he says that black people are now becoming tribal. And then he connects tribalism to racism. Okay, so where do we start? Let's start with racism. Racism. What is racism? What is racism? See, the guy at the fruit stand, he can call me a nigger. But that's not racism. That's prejudice. And that's bias. I'm going to tell you why. The banker can refuse my money. That one's a little bit close. That was a little bit close. But here's the point that I'm trying to make. Let's define racism. Racism is the oppression of a group of people by another group of people using the government and the systems and institution, i.e. power. Hence, if you don't have no power, you can't be racist. You're just some prejudiced asshole waiting in line to get beat the fuck up at some future point. Slapped like a woman. I'm sorry, woman. I hope she slaps your ass back. But you know what I'm actually trying to say. Okay? So it's not even racism, and I'm not taking the edge off of it or anything. But beyond that, I mean, if you don't have no money and no power, and you work a 9 to 5, the best you can muster is hatred and bias and freaking prejudice. Now, let's get to tribalism. What is he calling tribalism? What is he calling tribalism? What he's calling tribalism, I'm calling the spiritual and physical and conscious separation of Judah from the rest of society. Period. Period. He may have his views, his physical, on the plane views, meaning on the flat. On the flat. You see what I'm saying? That's just a view. But what are we really saying here though? Again, he accuses other blacks of being racist over the Carmelo Anthony case. This case analyzed, reanalyzed, and then those freaking analyses are even analyzed. Come on, man. Come on. But, however, it has brought out the coons and bootlegs. I mean, you would think that they're out to get some kind of spot on a talk show or something, man. A job in maybe politics or something. Maybe they can start out as a runner. I don't know, man. Anyway, we long ago gave up on them. They just exist. They exist within the social order and the social structure, but these are the ones who got the entirety of the house thrown into slavery, and then all but cussed out and berated as God went slap dap off after when these fools questioned what he was doing and why. He went off. Like, really? What did I tell you? So even after wiping out an entire nation, do you know that the people within the house of Israel were still there? This is why you don't let nobody make it. They were still there. You think they were happy that say for instance the house of Israel had wiped out the freaking Canaanites till they couldn't transgress unless they walked a long ways and maybe even over a mountain just to see somebody else? You think that didn't piss them off? And they didn't leave. They still kept calling themselves Israelite, even though spiritually their heart was on the other side of the mountain. On the other side of the mountain. Okay? They kept calling themselves that, and the rest of the communities around them, if there was such a thing, had went to calling themselves too. But both houses understood, and they seen the same transgressions again. It wasn't just the Canaanites, you know. It's basically whoever they bump into. And this is not to say anything about any other race. Actually, I believe that you have to follow the seed. Anyway, that's a whole different discussion. Okay? Not for today. It's about the seed. It's about the bloodline. The seed and the bloodline dominates everything anyway, genetically. It doesn't matter the race. That particular bloodline dominates. Okay? That's why you would think that, like science would say, that the darker the skin, the stronger genetically. No, they can be infused and bring about a lighter skinned child. Try that shit. Try that shit with Judah. That copper colored skin. Watch what happens. Watch what happens. It ain't gonna matter if you're white or black or in between. Some form of copper color is coming out on top. See? It's the dominant nature of the bloodline itself, which is why God wanted it shielded and protected, and if need be, kill and die for. It ain't just whistling Dixie. But anyway, we should expect for this to continue. I mean, I don't know who actually listened to it. I mean, except in terms to do what I'm doing, pick it apart, have a little fun with it as they expose it themselves without wanting to be clear. Just be clear. Be clear. But now I have provided you cover. You don't have to be clear. But you can be clear now because I've already said it for you. This is the reality. Different shared experiences. Different histories. Some people, anyway, that would have, what I was about to say, it would have been seen as derogatory, even though it wasn't meant to be. So I had to catch myself once again, because I'm not trying to sink the conversation into some area that I don't want it to go. And you are so thin-skinned that is easily done. You pretty much can't take the truth about anything, like these guys. Okay? It is what it is. And you're right, sir. What you call, and it's not racism, and it's not tribalism. We've never been called tribal. Never. That's a new one. We're not everyone else is. Trust me, there's nothing tribal about us since our first toes hit the beach, right off the port. There's nothing tribal about us. What you're witnessing is the separation and the coming together of Judah. That's all. That's all. Okay? We should just come to accept these things rather than color code them and just call spades spades. But like again, my friends would actually call you bootlicks and race traders and things of that nature. But I'm trying to understand you. And I do. I do. But here's the conundrum. We operate on different levels. We exist on different levels. The rest of society for hundreds of years, well, at least a couple of hundred years now, have viewed us as a monolithic race. Like they're looking at the 12 tribes in real time right now, when they're not. And even if they were, the 12 tribes, due to the history, don't necessarily like each other. In fact, they don't like each other. And to this day, quite honestly, if we're just on the topic, then, they're, oh man, they are, hey, Mr. Barnes, clean it up. Listen, they're almost viewed, I'm not going to say that either. God damn it. Just understand that we know the difference, okay? And legacy whites know also. So I don't even know why we're having this conversation. The only reason that you're having this conversation is because it shows that this is new for you. It's because of the lack of the shared experience, once again. Lack of a shared experience. You know what that experience is, sir? Or ma'am? This where shit gets comical. This where do I have to paint the picture? How much time I got? I got 8 minutes. I already said I don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this. I don't want to conjure up the necessary images in your mind, which is what I'm about to do. Paint the necessary images into your consciousness so you'll see the experience. I'll use words, but words are like a paintbrush. Words are like a paintbrush. But once again, I don't want any of it to be seen in a pejorative or some nature that it wasn't meant to be. And there's no way to actually clean up the truth. It's just not. I tell you what. Why don't you research it? The truth. And get into the nitty-gritty of it. Get into to the detail. Okay? Trust me, you'll view things at least slightly different, and if not, you will have a better understanding as to why we feel how we feel. Okay? We have been on the receiving end of a whole lot of destruction brought about at the hands of another man, another woman, for decades, and it still seeks to maintain itself to this day. That's a whole another different argument also. So we're going to stay focused in the last 6 minutes here. There's no misunderstanding. There's nothing to actually explain. It's not in legal terms, an argument has a collateral attack. This is not it. This is in your face, a frontal. The accusation is clear. It's clear. Okay? It's clear. How about just confronting it from the position that it is? I mean, goodness gracious, man. It's quite relieving and less stressful. Once you say the shit, it can't be taken back, and neither is it fully yours anymore. It seems to take on a life of its own. That's why, and the alternative, you should just be quiet unless you're going to face the reality head on. And the reality is clear. The accusations of foundational black Americans, also known as Negro, also known as Judah, and what's left of the house of Israel, they have taken a hell of a spiritual beating, and they seem to even be happy for the effort. But they've always been, well, it only took one, and then, you know what, that's why you have to nip shit in the bud. When the first couple of guys and gals had overstepped the boundaries, they should have never been allowed back into the house of Israel. They should have been beaten and throttled and forced to spend the rest of their lives in the next culture. Period. That's not what happened. They had children that came back, and those children, they had children. Yeah, I don't have to go down the road here until eventually there was war within the house of Israel. You would get it? It's kind of crazy, ain't it? So what do we have here now? They're not even the real coon class. Okay? And now everyone is upset with me, see? But the accusation is frontal, not as a segue, not as a sidebar, not as something that's being whispered. No, it's being said openly. But you act like that antagonizes you when it shouldn't. Again, man and his emotional state is just data, facts. Issues bring facts. All issues come with facts. Okay? They just do. If there's an issue, I guarantee you there's facts within the issue. So just stick to the facts, rather than try to create a narrative that someone is the victim, someone's not the victim. I mean, some shit just is. I don't really like the word a victim, but there are victims, lots and lots and lots and lots. I just don't like the word, okay? But I can afford that shit on a spiritual level. The rest of humanity, I can't. They make victims and they create victims, and there are victims in the discussion. And African Americans, i.e. FBA, i.e. Negro, and i.e. Judah, are an issue. And with issues come facts. Look at the facts. Deal with the facts. What you're calling tribalism isn't really tribalism. It's them separating. That's all. It's them reverting back to what they once were. These are God's chosen people. Period. And with that comes certain benefits and certain freaking privileges, provided that they can hold up their end of the bargain. They've already shown once that they will allow their brothers over here to drag them into doing, and well, rather accepting their reality. That's not of the tribe. They had already shown that. You know why? Because at one point, when they took it to God, God said, you must slay yourselves. Slay yourselves. What was he saying? This is when the house of Israel was whole. Slay yourselves. We know what he was saying. He was saying, to fix this problem, you're going to have to kill your brother, kill your sisters. That's what he was saying. And Judah didn't have the heart then, and it doesn't have the heart now. It doesn't. It didn't have it then. Else it would have did it, huh? And we wouldn't be having this problem today. What did it lead to? Future bondage. From one bondage to the next bondage. And in the midst of both, what did you have? In Egypt, the Pharaoh utilized what they termed taskmasters. These were infiltrators infiltrators that watched over from the inside of the tribe who were slaves. because they outnumbered Pharaoh due to childbirth. Pharaoh became afraid of them and understood one day there's a woman right out there. I don't know which one, but they're gonna have a baby, and that baby is gonna be a problem. See? So they utilize taskmasters. Today, or on the plantation, they were called overseers. Today, they're called what they have many terms: bootlicks, traders. You know, like I say, I don't really deal in it myself because they're just there. They always was, and there's an end, and we know the end. Piss God off enough, and He'll do it Himself. I am Source. I am Seven. I am One.